Okay. So actually on speaker the birds are kind of loud, but
Okay, yeah, I'll take it off speaker.
okay. So we got Nicole Martinez and Jennifer Neese, and we are discussing a case study. And we're gonna note the observable and unobservable things in this situation, okay?
Okay.
And then as we go along, think about any concerns that you may have with the observable and unobservable. So Mrs. Iva Haddett is a teacher for elementary students with behavior disorders in the Premack School District. And from the evaluations done by her principal, she appears to be quite competent. This year, however, perhaps because of her superior past performance, she has found herself in a classroom with several students who demonstrate serious behavior problems. At a local teacher hangout, the following conversation took place with Les and Iva Haddett. So Les is the friend. Les, I think this is the worst year I've ever had. It seems that my classroom has every problem student in the school. I've got 2 children who don't want to be in school, 4 with filthy minds, and at least 10 who don't like me. Now Iva said, Les, don't take it so hard. I'm sure it can't be all that bad. My class is simply wonderful. Let me tell you, Les, about some of the things that go on in my class. Last week, Bobby, so here's where we take a note of observable or unobservable. He walked into the classroom 10 minutes late, which was early for him. He stuck out his tongue at me, gave Miss Dogood, our volunteer, the finger, cursed at Bill, and spit in the trash can, and he's one of my better students. Bill, not to be outdone, cursed back, threw his book at Bob, leered at me, and whispered something under his breath. All this time, Wanda is gazing out the doorway, moving her lips, never caring about what is happening in the classroom. Andy, who is the most immature boy I've had in years, winces every time Bill or Bob walks by, and they usually respond by hitting him. He cries, of course, but I've been told by John that Andy plays nasty tricks on Bill and Bob, like putting gum on their seats when they're not around. In addition to being immature, Andy has been certified as hyperactive by his physician, and I'm certain he can't concentrate on what I'm saying. Jill is another story. Jill steals anything that isn't nailed down. Searching her desk is like visiting the lost and found. I like the children. I think the child who worries me the most is Wanda. She doesn't spend too much time with other friends, and she has a low self-concept and spends too much of her time thinking about all the terrible things that go on at home. What am I to do? And her friend says, let me buy you a beer. Yeah. Okay, so I wrote down some things, and I'll just ask you to make it easier, since you might not have been writing that down, and this is supposed to be pretty easygoing. So what do you think about Wanda not wanting to socialize with other students? Is that observable or unobservable?
Well, it's observable that she's not talking, but it's unobservable what she's thinking about.
That's exactly what I said. And whenever the other boy was hitting the other boys, so I should know their names, Bill and Bob. So Andy plays tricks, and John says Andy plays tricks on Bill and Bob, and then they hit him. So
it's unobservable if the student's just saying, hey, this person plays tricks on him.
Yes, and
it's observable when they're hitting each other.
And then I would note a concern that I really didn't realize when I read this the first time would be, that shouldn't be like a constant thing. The boundaries, we should not allow that in the class, the students allowed to get hit. So you're in a life skills.
There should be enough structure in the class that there's not tricks being played, especially in a behavior unit, because I've worked in one.
Okay.
You have it set up in a way that safe for all students.
So you call it a behavior unit? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, it's BBC is the behavior class, and so it's called a behavior unit.
BBC, behavior.
It's district behavior class.
But what's the other B stand for?
It's just D, like D for district. D
okay, D, Delta. Okay, cool. I thought you said like Bravo, Bravo. Cool. So that's great. I have good feedback because I just have like autism center observation at the functional behavior analysis, barely. Like I just observed 1 hour for 8+ hours last semester, but I haven't been in the classroom like you have. And then I have like some relatives that have some backgrounds in the behavior maladaptive areas, but I really don't have like the classroom experience, so that's really insightful. So Jill is stealing. Is that observable or unobservable?
That's observable.
And is that a concern?
Oh yeah, because again, if the child's being supervised enough, which in that setting they need to be because that's why they're in there, they shouldn't have the time to be able to go and take things without the teacher being aware of it until they go through their desk. Because we had a student that had that problem, but it was limited because we had eyes on him like a hawk. So
and then it
was not observable that he's going through the motions and not being noticed.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder like where that comes from, if it's at home, if it's not controlled at home. Also, especially if it was like food.
If it's needs.
Needs, yeah. And then why do you think Andy, if he does, why do you think Andy would play tricks on Bill or Bob?
Maybe he's attention seeking.
Yeah.
It's unobservable as to the motivation because he needs attention and he's not getting it at home, and that's why he's acting out behaviorally.
Yeah. So the conversation that I've had with the other part of group 3 last night was noting that, and I don't know why I didn't note that, but if it is attention seeking, I overanalyze things and I think like, well, maybe they have like coping skills or they need to see the counselor, and the one that hits or the one that's usually good, I think it was Bobby, and he stuck out his tongue and he spit, and all those were nonverbal but observable. Right. I was thinking maybe he needs to learn how to deal with his feelings, like use your words, and that would be a concern.
That's something really that once you get in a behavior class, that's something that the teacher needs to be implementing, because the counselor comes into the room and some of them will go seek counseling throughout the day, but especially in like the elementary school level, the teacher needs to know how to
approach that,
to build a relationship with that student so that they feel safe and comfortable telling them, hey, this is what I'm going through, so that they can help redirect and minimize those behaviors and replace them with the positive reinforcements, and so that they're getting that attention that they need really bad, and so that will limit the acting out and trying to seek negative attention.
Yes.
Teacher.
And that's hard sometimes because as humans we usually react, and especially we tell them what not to do. So if I can't,
we look at the topical level, not
and I'm looking at more elementary, which I understand that kids can't be expected to act a certain way, like have social skills, if they're not taught that. So instead of pinpointing just Bobby, I would have to maybe make a lesson. Some people call it social stories. There's actually a person, and so it could be about how to deal with your emotions, but it doesn't have to be when it happens, because then the person, for example, when a kid
do it ahead of time.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to a really simple task, which would be talking about some rules and how you would basically make the 10 rules into one, or how you would make a rule out of a problem. Just like, for example, physical contact in the classroom, there could be a rule about that. I'm going to pause the camera real quick to save the upload, and then I'll restart it. Okay, so 1 second. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay, we've gone on 16 minutes and 57 seconds, so that's pretty good.